Alright guys, so today we're going over Portra 800 versus LOMO 800. We all know that Kodak Portra just raised their prices in the beginning of 2022. It's now February, I think. And the whole rumor behind that is the reason that they're doing that is so they could reinvest money back into fixing up old machines or maybe making new machines. I don't know. But just so they can start pumping out more film because there's more demand than supply. So if that's the case, I 100% back the price hike. But with that, I'm sure there's a lot of new people checking out LOMO's film stock. So I just want to do my best on doing a side-by-side comparison using my Mamiya 645 Pro TL. I got the film developed at the Last Good Film Lab in Los Angeles on the Frontier scanner. We'll go over the scans here in a second, but you'll notice that they look very similar, like very similar. So I'm not sure if the lab purposely try to match them up or what, but the fact that it looks so close straight from the lab, they didn't do any editing on it, is kind of crazy. So I'm a little bit suspect on if LOMO is actually Kodak film stock. But yeah, throughout this video, I'll show you guys some behind the scenes and how I'm taking the photos, and then we'll jump in the scans and we'll go back and forth like that. So we'll be shooting with my Mamiya 645 Pro TL, and I have two film backs for it, so I'll be able to do like proper side-by-side, switching out the backs and everything. I'm gonna get some over and under exposures of this. We have a good mix of like really contrasty light, so it should be like a good like detailed kind of comparison. So I can't go too far out in the street for this shot, so I'm gonna put on the 645 35mm and see how far back I can get. The street's super busy that this place is on. Yeah, we'll see how well I can do off of here. Everything's good. I forgot to label which back is which back. I kind of hate these foam meters. In my personal opinion, they're not accurate. So I'm going to go down to, let's do F11. So our highlights are at 750th and our shadows are at 250th. 500, F11, and there we go. So I'm gonna go F11 to F5.6. So we're really overexposing it. And we'll see how it handles the overexposure. All right, let me switch the back out now. Should blow that dust out of there. So again, 500 shutter, F11, not F5.6. All right, so on the left we have LOMO and on the right we have Portra. Grain wise, you can definitely see that the Portra has finer grain and the LOMO's is definitely a little bit more grainier. Again, when you're shooting medium format, you can kind of get away with shooting 800, especially if you're shooting like 6.7 and above. But once you start shooting 35mm, the LOMO grain is going to come out a lot more, which to me, I mean, most of us are just posting to social media. I think it will look perfectly fine. But you can see overall, there's just like a little bit of warmth. But I mean, both of these, you can easily edit to look pretty decent. Now, I took a second set of these images underexposed. So again, these were on the Frontier. They're equal once again to where the Portra has a little bit more warmth in it, which I prefer, especially in the highlights. I like that like magenta warmth in the highlights. Again, those first set of images were exposed like pretty much in the middle point of the exposure, and then this one I took it down a stop or two. So again, LOMO's on top, Portra's on bottom. But something I want to do is just recover the shadows just to see what they look like. Personally, for me, I edit my film images. If you have an issue with that, too bad. Consider myself a photographer, aka an artist, so do whatever you want to do. But yeah, let's just zoom into 100% on these. These were high quality TIFF scans. And again, you can see the LOMO is definitely a lot more grainier, but I don't think it looks horrible. Like this is like, I would totally use LOMO for like personal work that I'm just going to be posting to social media. But for any like client stuff, I'd most likely stick to Kodak Portra just because it's tried and true. Again, the exposures look a little bit different, but they were shot back to back with the same setting. So this is the lab, just tweaking them differently. I kind of wish they balanced those out properly. I mean, we could simply just go into the LOMO and we could just lower the brightness to it matches. It's not exactly the same, but you see that the Portra's greens do look, I like how much more saturated and minty they are, and Kodak Portra 800 is pretty saturated as it is. All right, so these top set of images are all LOMO and these bottom ones are all Portra. Honestly, these look pretty freaking similar. So this first exposure I exposed for pretty much these mids. The second one I underexposed a stop from there, and this third one I underexposed another stop. So this is like 2 stops under, and we're seeing that consistency again where the Portra's greens are a little bit more minty than the LOMO's. If we look at the reds are a little bit more true how they were to real life on the Portra as well, where they're a little bit more of that, like that true red. And on the LOMO, it's going a little bit more to that like a clayish, orangey type red. Both look great though. Okay, these are all the LOMOs. Again, this is exposed for shadows. This is a stop under there. This one's another stop under there, and this one's 3 stops under there. Just wanted to see how it look overexposed versus underexposed. So you see the highlights. They're sticking there. Definitely in the lab, they could bring that exposure down more if they wanted to and recover those highlights in there. But you see the LOMO does have a lot of saturation, but once you start underexposing, we're getting like those brownish shadows, which I don't mind at all. You can easily edit that too if you didn't want that. Now here's the Portra ones. You can see off the bat they look a lot cleaner, and when they scanned these in, they did a better job on matching them all up. Again, this one's exposed for highlights. This is stop under there. This is 2 stops under, and then this is 3 stops under. And consistently, we're getting just really clean results out of the Portra. So I definitely prefer the look of the Portra, but the LOMO's still holding up. So we have LOMO on the left and Portra on the right. Again, the lab did a pretty good job. Like, you really can't tell the difference between these 2 film stocks. Yeah, the shadows are a little bit more fade on here, but that could easily be corrected with just simply lowering the black levels. And now you see they match up a little bit better. I do like the consistency in the yellows in the Portra, but this is like nitpicking at this point. It's pretty crazy that there's not a huge difference. All right, guys, so I hope that answers some questions for you. Again, I don't know how much the lab did to match these up, but the fact that they're able to do it just from the straight from the scanner. If you've been scared to shoot LOMO, don't be. It seems like it's a little bit more underrated than what we were expecting, at least from what I was expecting. So yeah, I'll probably start shooting a lot more. And that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.